Greetings, I am No Talent Red Mage, and this is another Retro Shitstorm. Today we are looking at Pugsley's Scavenger Hunt on the NES. I know what you're thinking. Why am I going after low-hanging fruit in the form of a cartoon tie-in game? Well, firstly, this came up via random number generator, and two, just because it's a tie-in game doesn't mean it gets a free pass. So what exactly is Pugsley's Scavenger Hunt? Well, I would say it's a scavenger hunt, but it lacks some crucial elements that you typically find in a scavenger hunt. Firstly, it's more closer to a boss rush game, but with no map to really speak of. You get clues to locations of objects you're looking for, but no real context as to where due to other mitigating factors. Cough, cough, missing map. I will discuss later on some ways they could have possibly improved this, but for now, let's go through what it's currently doing. Firstly, it's a platformer, but a very basic one. Pugsley only actually gets one form of self-defense, and that's jumping on top of enemies. That's it. That's the only form of attack Captain Chunks here gets. However, unlike a competent platformer like Mario, for example, Pugsley's Scavenger Hunt contains no real power-ups of value. No Fire Flower, no Tanuki Suit, no nothing. Sure, you have a hat thing that makes you jump higher and fall slower, and another that makes you run faster, but more often than not, they are placed in areas where they're just not needed, or in places where they actively work against your progress. Enemies are also placed usually haphazardly, and often attack off-screen for cheap shot you. This is a problem with older NES games. Pugsley himself feels a bit off, like he's closer to being weightless despite his girth. His jumps are a little on the floaty side and off-putting in, like, say, Mario or Adventure Island. And when he does land, it doesn't feel like he has any impact at all. He does, however, bounce very high, making me theorize he's actually just filled with helium. Oh, wait. Ocean developed this, didn't they? I guess he's filled with helium and shit, then. None of the bosses in-game are actually really difficult, and despite me currently sucking ass on screen, it's more akin to a lack of memorization, Floaty Boy Hill, and the occasional cheap shot from off-screen. I actually made it pretty far back in the day when I rented this alongside Ghostbusters 2 from Video 98, but even back then I couldn't be asked to actually finish it. The cheap shot off-screen wouldn't be so much of an issue if Pugs here could take more than one hit before dying also. Speaking of Pugs, notice his sprite looks like if Beetlejuice decided to go on an all-beefcake diet, akin to Cartman. Actually, that's kind of unfair to him. His sprite looks closer to the game that started life as a ZX Spectrum port, but then got stopped quickly when they realized next to no one in America actually owned that thing. The sprite work backgrounds are semi-well done, even though none of them make sense in the context of the Addams Family estate, well, aside from the house. That said, for every sprite done well or background done well, there's sprites that only have like one or two frames, and usually the backgrounds are just one solid color, usually puke green, and doesn't really have anything going on in the background to begin with. Speaking of nothing going on, you hear that? That's the sound of no music to speak of. Only the beeps and boops of Captain Chunks hitting things and or dying. There's no excuse for either of missing, as the 8-bit rendition of the Addams Family at the start menu is actually pretty solid. There isn't even any boss music in the game. In some ways, I'd accept a game being in this state at the start of the NES's lifespan. But this came out in 1992, near the end of the lifespan of the console, when it already was competing with much more competent platformers with far higher levels of polish. The entire thing just reeks of a rushed cash grab to capitalize on a cartoon that, to be honest, wasn't very long-lived or good to begin with, for that matter. I almost think this would make a much better point-and-click adventure game. Imagine solving puzzles with different family members and all the random injuries and or deaths that could occur from the Addams Family manor. Alas, instead of a masterpiece, in the same vein as Maniac Mansion, we get a rushed, ugly, and half-aborted ZX Spectrum port. Oh boy, I really hate being negative about the Addams Family. I really do love them, but this game is just shit. I am No Talent Red Mage, and this has been Retro Shitstorm. If you like this video, then go ahead and maybe hit that subscribe button, and maybe that notification bell. Or, if you disliked the video, go ahead and thumbs down and tell me how I should die of diabetes in the comments below. Either way, I hope you have a great day.